people, in New York, the concrete jungle where dreams are made of, the skyline is the best, the pizza is the best, the fashion is the best, and the restaurants are the best. If you don't believe me, just ask a New Yorker, they'll tell you. As a transplanted Bostonian who started my lighting career in New York, I initially found some of that bravado to be a bit grating, until I realized that some of it was actually true. New York City also carries great business influence across the United States, finance, fashion, and yes, lighting too. So we thought it would be a good idea to catch up with two New Yorkers who are involved with many aspects of the lighting market with a leading lighting agent, Enterprise Lighting Sales. First, we have Enterprise's VP of Sales, Gerry Trolio. Gerry, hello and thank you for joining us today for 5 Big Questions.
Al, thank you for having us today.
Great to be with you, Gerry. And next to you is Mike Carbonari, the VP of Operations. How you doing, Mike?
I am good, Al. How are you?
Oh, awesome. You know, it's good to see you guys. We've known each other a very long time. I think going back to the late 90s, and a lot has changed over that time, especially the last couple of years. And Gerry, you spend a good portion of your time working with the New York design community, lighting designers, engineers, and other specifiers. What's the climate like in New York as far as customer visits and working on projects and showing products?
Well, New York is coming back to life, which is really happy to see. We're having a hybrid still, though, of some days in the office, some days away from the office. It seems that the engineers are more in the office on a daily basis, where the lighting designers are doing a hybrid. But overall, it's great to see more and more people coming back to the office, which are enabling us to get out into their spaces, showing product, putting it in their hands, which was so lacking for the past 2 years.
Yeah, you know, very important for specifiers, especially those IALD lighting design types, of which there's many in New York, to see that product up close. I think famously, Susan Brady's office moved to North Jersey. And, you know, this isn't about Susan Brady's office specifically, but have you seen firms like that that kind of went remote? And do you anticipate, Gerry, that some of those firms will come back into Manhattan?
Yeah, actually I do. I mean, there are still a lot of offices where the employees are working remotely. But overall, they do try to rally around the office as a gathering point when they have job site meetings, or when they have some design meetings together. So I do see it. I mean, they do enjoy working remotely, but I think as a natural trend, you'll see more and more people coming back.
Well, I love the positivity. And I thought your positivity, Gerry, was just because as we record this in late April, the Mets are in first place. Are you predicting an August or September collapse this year? Another question for another time.
Well, you're giving them a greater amount of credit than I would to that point, but so far so good. I'll take it. Take it while you can get it.
When's the All-Star game?
Yeah,
that's right after the All-Star game.
The decline, that second Tuesday in July, and then it's game over for the Mets in Flushing. But Mike, I don't think you're a Mets fan. You're a Yankees fan, if I recall. Is that correct?
I am a Yankees fan.
All right. So we know which one of you has the winning track record in the room. And speaking of that, Mike, you're involved in an operational standpoint of, you know, winning projects and working with you know, various customers as well on big and small projects. What's the business climate like in New York right now?
Getting better. The first part of the year was a little tough. The middle of the first quarter was very tough. The last 4 or 5 weeks we've seen a lot of pickup. We've seen a lot of orders that were on hold finally getting released. It is busy by all accounts in terms of quoting. Our quotes are off the charts, but released orders we're still fighting for. Third, fourth quarter, we're definitely expecting a much better result.
Well, good, and that's good to see that coming back as well. One of the really lay people who are walking the streets or picking up local newspapers are seeing that monstrosity being built on 47th and Park, the JP Morgan Chase headquarters. Yeah. It's going to be 70 stories.
Lots of lighting agents. That's a thing of beauty. And as we were talking earlier about people coming back to the office, I don't think JP Morgan is putting up a $3 billion building to have people work remotely. So I do think that you'll see more and more coming back, and it is a beautiful thing to see that construction going on.
Yeah, that's a great point. You got 70 stories. You got to fill 70 stories with office space. So, great point. How does a big job like that get written? I assume that you guys are chasing that, but I imagine that the other 20-something agents in New York City as well.
Yeah. So I think everybody gets their piece. At least that's the hope. I mean, it's too much. It's such a large project that It's not all going to go to one person. I mean, they hire all different contractors for all different sections of the job, the exterior, the interior, the back of house, the, fire alarm. It's
Inverters,
yeah.
there's a lot to be had in a building of that size.
Yeah.
So there'll be a lot of different agencies that play on that.
Yep. Each one will have their own piece.
Yeah, and obviously New York is, people know that it's not a package market. So if there's a school written in New York, it's not uncommon for different distributors and agents to get a piece of the school. You scale that up to a project of this size, I'm sure there's going to be even more pieces carved out. So let's talk about New York in the sense where a lot of people were in your city last month for Leducation, which was a rather successful trade show and conference. And you folks have your own agency event planned, the ELS Expo on May 10th and 11th, an event that I've been to numerous times. Tell us about that, Gerry.
Well, I'm excited for our event. I think it's going to be the first big show in New York. We had Light Fair back in October. That was kind of thinly visited by a lot of people. Leducation was greatly visited. I mean, there was a lot of people. I heard about 4,000 people attended that show. We feel we're going to get a very strong turnout for our show. And the advantage is that you have more time to see each manufacturer at our event than going to Leducation. There's so many people there, and it was really the first time people got out, but you didn't have time to sit down and talk in depth about product specific when you're at Leducation, where you will have that time at our show. And there's a lot of people to see at our show. So we're really happy about it. Good timing.
Nice weather.
Yeah, good weather right before Light Fair out in Vegas. So we're looking forward to our show.
No, that makes sense. And you're right, there's a more intimate setting where you're not funneling through hundreds of booths. You have a really good set of brands that exhibit and will be exhibiting again at the ELS Expo, May 10th and 11th. And when you consider, though, the people that might be like, well, I schlepped in from North Jersey to go to Leducation. Why should I schlep into North Jersey to go to the ELS Expo, May 10th and 11th? What would you say to them, Mike?
I love the shameless plugs, Al. Thank you very much. And by the way, if you haven't heard, it's May 10th and 11th. But it really is a different atmosphere than Leducation. Leducation was great. It got everybody out. It kind of broke the ice on the masks, on COVID, on New York.
On shaking hands.
On shaking hands. I mean, we had 4,000 people at Leducation. The week before, everybody was masked up. And at Leducation, they were hugging, kissing, shaking hands, and walking around as if it were normal. So we're really looking forward to the expo. We're really looking forward to getting back in person with everybody. It's what our business is built on. It's all about the relationships.
And it's good to see people that we've had a 20+ year relationship with in person again. I mean, when you think about it, it's we've known these people for 20+ years, and then you didn't see them for 2 years. Yeah. And it's just the excitement of being together again. You do business together, but you grow friendships over this period of time, and it's just really it's really good to see your friends again.
Yep.
I think that's true. And I attended Light Fair as well as Leducation, both in New York, as you mentioned earlier. Yeah. And there was that greatness of just being in person and seeing products. But also that collegiality. It felt like a homecoming weekend at times, seeing these people that you kind of grew up with in the industry and seeing them again.
It was two different shows. They were very different attitudes, from Light Fair to Leducation.
True.
So,
true. But the point there is that this feeling of collegiality and reunion, and you're going to have more of that at the ELS Expo.
Absolutely.
But also seeing the products. I remember as I was attending these various shows that there's a product that you see in person, especially these designers that look at products with a level of scrutiny and appreciation that I would never have. But you look at like the mitered corner of a Wagner handrail, or just some of these details that it's great to see that stuff in person and really experience some of these features. Are there any products that you think of that are really kind of like, hey, they look great on an Instagram account or on a spec sheet, but you really got to see it in person? Gerry, what's your answer to that?
Yeah, we have many manufacturers that you'd be excited to see. So we have a company called Extant, which has thoroughly rethought how to do a linear slot system. It has a overlay optic on it that smooths out the light, and it puts beam distribution on that overlay optic. They use a edge lit waveguide So they shrink down the housing, which is really smartly thought out, especially in the plenums in New York, where they're always trying to squeeze the depth down. So you have that. There's no breaks in the light and the seams. There's no seams on the fixture for long runs. So that's one of them. We have the lighting quotient, which has totally revamped its entire line during COVID, and it's now smaller, all LED product. We have Cooper with their healthcare initiatives, and we have a lot of product to show on healthcare, which is a big move here in New York for us. We have a healthcare division set up for lighting controls and lighting products as well. And plus, we're also going to introduce a old manufacturer that's new to us again. Edison Price Lighting is coming back to Enterprise Lighting. So we're really happy to have that, have them at our show as well.
Yeah,
That's great. Let's get the band back together. Yeah,
That's
right out of right over the 59th Street Bridge. Edison Price Lighting coming to ELS. That's fantastic. And I think it is. It is. So that's great. Yeah, I remember when I started my career, like that brand was all over the high-end museum space and everything else. And it was a really great brand. Good to see the resurgence there. In fact, if I may just talk about one of my favorite topics myself. One of my cringe-worthy moments when I look back on my long time in this industry, like a moment of embarrassment I had was actually at the ELS Expo many years ago. This goes back 15 plus years. Let me share it real quick. So this was when HLB, who was probably way ahead of their time at the time, they were coming out with this lighting fixture database called Illumic. Do you remember this?
Oh yes.
And you folks were kind enough to give them a free exhibit location at your ELS Expo 2004, whenever this was. And I remember, so there was Barbara Horton and Carrie Ann Knowles, I think at the time, if I'm remembering her maiden name, who were manning their booth. And I brought like water over to them. And when I was placing it down, it spilled and their whole table was like sopping wet. And of course, most of those ladies, they're so gracious, but I could tell that they were not happy with my flub. But speaking of drinks, I see that there's going to be like a combined 8 hours of open bar, including Mexican street food. What is street food, and is it safe to eat?
Yeah. So yes, normally we would answer that question with a yes. During COVID, we do understand that there's a concern, but yeah, tacos, burritos.
It's a fiesta.
It's a whole fiesta. You can even wear your sombrero if you come along.
I don't go anywhere without my sombrero, especially in May 10th and 11th. I'll still have it with me. So that's fantastic. Well, guys, I'm excited about the ELS Expo. It's been great catching up with the two of you, and I wish you a successful event. But most importantly, I wish Enterprise Lighting Sales and the entire New York lighting community continued success as you crawl back from these interesting years. And it was great to see you again. So thank you for joining us today for 5 Big Questions.
Al, thank you for having us. Great to see you as well.
Always a pleasure, Al. Always welcome in New York, even though you're originally from Boston. It's okay.
Hey there, we really enjoyed that discussion. We hope that you did as well. Be sure to click that big LED logo next to me, and what that'll do is subscribe you to our YouTube channel so you don't miss the next 5 Big Questions interview. And YouTube subscribers always receive an early preview to the next interview before we even post it on the Inside Lighting website. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.